first. So I'll just go from my top rows down. So Julie,
Julie Johnson, CPS board member.
Trayvon,
Rayvan, CPS board member.
why don't you also say where you live at the town in which you live so people know.
Okay, I'm living low. Yeah, I've been around in the community too.
Right.
I live in Boston, retired from as an MTA lobbyist.
Yeah. Eric.
I'm Eric Berg. I'm also in Boston, and I'm the president of the Boston Teachers Union and an elementary school teacher by trade.
Barbara.
I'm Barbara Fields. I'm a member of BEAM and on the executive board.
Alan. You're on mute, Alan.
Alan Jalen. I'm from Somerville, and I edit a blog in Boston called it's called Schoolyard News.
Yvonne.
Good evening, Yvonne Alvarez. I'm the superintendent in Lynn, and I live in Lynn.
Andrew.
Good evening, y'all. My name's Drew. I'm in Cambridge, CPS treasurer, e-board, and I'm the community school strategist at the MTA.
Matt.
Hi, everyone. My name is Matt Ruggiero. I am an ESL teacher in Boston, member of the Boston Teachers Union, and I live in Boston.
Lou.
Hi, my name is Lou Kruger, and I'm on the CPS board. And I had been living in Norwood for 35 years, but this last fall we moved to Sharon, Mass.
Great. Beth.
Hi, Beth Contos, retired social studies teacher from Salem. I live in Danvers and retired AFT Mass president. Nice to see you all.
Yeah. Edith. You're on mute, Edith.
Sorry, I was taking a call. Hi, I'm Edith Brazil, Black Advocates for Educational Excellence. Good to see everyone.
Great. Sheila.
I'm Sheila Dector. I helped to start a Citizens for Public Schools Coalition in 1982. And I'm retired after more than a few years running Jewish Alliance for Law and Social Action.
And Lisa.
Hi, everybody. Lisa Geisbon, CPS Executive Director. And here comes Peggy.
Oh, great. And Peggy, can you introduce yourself? Just where you live and what any organization you're associated with other than CPS?
Sure. It's Peggy Wiesenberg. I'm in Jamaica Plain. I used to live on the same street that Dan now lives on, but I'm in another part of Jamaica Plain. Sorry, I'm saying okay, we're being recorded. I work with Quest Quality Education for Every Student and the NAACP. I'm on their education committee. I'm a member of the ACLU of Massachusetts.
Great.
How's that?
That's perfect. Thank you. Let's see. I'm waiting for Deb and I'm Dan French. I live in Boston, board president. And Deb, hi. It looks like you might be in a car. That's okay. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. The name's Deb McCarthy, fifth grade educator and vice president of the MTA. Sorry, I'm a little bit late. Hopefully my camera's on, right? Okay, no, all right. There we go.
Well, we're
Are
glad
you
to have
born in
everybody.
Massachusetts?
We're glad to have everybody who's here in whatever place or shape you're in. Okay, so agenda, when we get started, we're gonna spend a little bit of time. The executive board wanted to spend a little bit of time just acknowledging and sharing thoughts around the administration's threats to public education. That's the federal administration. We'll do a little bit of relationship building in small groups. I'm going to talk about a proposed initiative that we're going to hopefully be undertaking called the People's Commission, which will then have some Q&A and small group, if needed, discussion. And then we'll close out with Lisa's executive director's report, Drew's treasurer's report. Turn. So and just ground rules. Pretty simple. Step up, step back, meaning say your piece, be aware of time, and step back, be respectful. One person speaks at a time and agree to disagree. So I'll turn it back over to Lisa.
Mute. Thank you, Dan. So we are a statewide education advocacy organization, but especially now we can't ignore what's happening at the federal level to attack and attempt to dismantle, it seems, every aspect of our government and democracy, including and especially public education. And you've probably noticed, just to underscore this, that the New York Times reported just hours ago that President Trump signed an executive order that would, quote, begin eliminating the Federal Department of Education once and for all. Although the Times noted the agency cannot legally be closed without the approval of Congress. So there's that, which was not surprising because he kept promising to do that. So that affects us here in Massachusetts. For example, Massachusetts schools receive more than $2 billion in federal funding each year, which is significant, especially for our low-income students and for special education. Cities and towns have already lost $12.2 million of federal money that had been earmarked for local schools to buy food from local farms. And in Lawrence, for example, students rely on $14 million in federal aid, including Title I aid to support low-income students and IDEA funding for special ed. Fortunately, our own Attorney General and other state officials are fighting back at Trump's unconstitutional attempt to destroy public education. And there's a lot of legal action you may have been reading. Lawsuits included one on March 5th by the ACLU, the NEA, suing the DOE over federal funding cuts for education institutions nationwide for engaging in diversity, equity, and inclusion. March 13th, 20 states, including Massachusetts and DC, sued the Trump administration over plans to cut the US DOE staff in half, but now he's gone ahead and signed an order to eliminate the Department of Education. And on the 14th, a Maryland-based Council of Parent Attorneys and Advocates sued on behalf of parents who said their civil rights complaints were left in limbo as a result of the layoffs in the US DOE's Civil Rights Office. So this horrible, shocking, kind of nauseating stuff is happening, but people are fighting back. There's so much action in the courts that it's hard to keep track of it all, where it all stands. There's also a Massachusetts version of a national so-called fight back table that's bringing together education, labor, civil rights, as well as immigrants' rights groups and other organizations to meet regularly and share information about the threats from the federal level and work together to protect our vulnerable students and fight back. So we just thought that we couldn't start our meeting and sort of dive into our specific projects without acknowledging this context that we're in and what's happening at the federal level, such as it is. So happy to be with you all here together to support each other as we try and process all of this and deal with it and figure out what we're going to do about it.
Don't we want to, any thoughts, comments that people want to add in, or
Shrivant,
things you've heard of, or actions that you know about?
The first weekend in April, and I think it really will be a monthly thing, there's going to be a, excuse me, a protest at the State House. And I don't know the exact time. I don't know if it's noontime or not, but I'll share it with you guys when I find out for sure. In general, about pushing back on Trump and Elon and the cuts, and I'm sure there'll be a large education presence at that one. But I honestly think every weekend there is something going on. So I think we do need to take to the streets, as even if it becomes commonplace, we just have to do it.
Trayvon?
I think like the major they will do on April 16 for the State House Education for stand out over there. They will gather from other organization. Yeah, every day. I think every year they will do on April. I think this year they do April 16. I got a message from the major.
Yes. Yeah, I was going to talk about that as well later on in the meeting, Shrivant, but thank you for bringing that up.
And then March 4th, educators took action across the state and the country, right? And there's going to be in their schools and school walk-ins, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's going to be more school walk-in days. I don't know if that's the same day in April that Beth and others mentioned or not, but
Oh, the April 5th is a Saturday. So
that's something different. But
yep. And it's more broad than just education. And there will be singing.
So I'd like to share just a few things. I saw a press release by Governor Healy this afternoon. I don't know if you all have had an opportunity to read it. It is on the website, and it speaks to sort of the challenges that an absence of federal funding will, basically how it will impact our most vulnerable students. The issue over the last couple of weeks has really been the lack of definite guidance from, right, the administration in Washington, and basically has left educators speculating, like, if this happens, what could happen? But we don't know for sure. And so the association for school committees, as well as the Mass, which is the superintendent's association, has really advised all superintendents and administrators across the state to stay away from speculating what we really, no one knows, right? Like no one knows. And I know that it was necessary for the governor to put out a statement based on what is happening in Washington at the moment. But the press release doesn't say anything concrete either. The Superintendents Association, which is AASA, had a conference in New Orleans 2 weeks ago, and I did attend. They had a whole session on federal policy and what they anticipate, right, with all of the legal counsel that they have, around what might not be funded. And so they've been holding back on some of that information because, again, it is, speculative. And the business administrators met today, this morning. And what we know right now are two things: a plan for a 20% reduction of Title I funds.
Jeez. Right.
Oh, oh,
Mhm.
Why should people eat?
And then the other is apparently Desi had a meeting this afternoon with whoever is in charge of Department of Ed um, around Title III funds because it's expected that potentially Title III funds may not be released.
Can you remind us what Title III covers?
Title III is English language learners and immigrant students,
Okay.
right? Um, the when I looked at the materials that the business administrators went over, I also did not see, I saw IDEA looking like it's going to be fully funded. It looks like Title I will be funded, obviously minus perhaps that 20%. I didn't see Title II. I didn't see Title III. And the Title IV looks like it would be level funded. So I don't know if that just means they're going to keep rolling over the amounts or there's another formula somewhere where they would level fund. So
Yvonne, why don't you remind people what 2 and 4 are as well?
so two is professional development. It's high professional development, hiring, recruiting, right? Highly qualified teachers. And three is the L and immigrant learners. R1 covers all of low income, right, highest need students. And then Title IV is enrichment supplemental, similar to one, but you can use it for support services for staff. So districts will have a range of like professional development to um, enrichment services there, depending on how much money they have. So uh, I think it's, you know, one of the potential problems with obviously for districts with high numbers of immigrant students, with the Title III funds potentially disappearing is, we have the Lookout Act, which they basically said when they passed it, like you have all this flexibility, you can build the type of program you want for English language learners, but it also heavily relies on Title III. And then most districts, depending on how many students they have, they also, cover the difference of funding from Chapter 70. Um, in our case, with a population of English language learners, where it means almost half the district is an English language learner of the 17,000 students, right? We're edging on 8,000 students or else. That means we have over 100 staff, over 100 teachers that are ELD teachers, L teachers, dual language teachers, ESL teachers. And there is no funding specifically for any of this. And so in our titles, there's only about $3 million for Title III. And if we looked at everything, including all of the teachers that we fund out of Chapter 70, we're looking at about an $11 million commitment, right? So without the three, now we're seriously looking at how do we, right? Like first we have to reduce services and resources and personnel. I mean, it's just going to be disastrous. Disastrous. So if you had 100 students that were English language learners, right, potentially this impacts you very little. But when you have 8,000 students that are English language learners, you can see, we're going to have to make some difficult decisions. And I just don't know why this was like an unfunded mandate in Massachusetts. And, with a lot of pride, like if you look at all the literature, student equity-based funding, like it's we're at 75% Spanish speaking, right? Else, Lawrence, for instance, is at 95%.
Mhm.
So I can't imagine what this will do.
Mm.
Um,
Mhm.
Well, thanks for
That's what I
painting.
know. Yeah, that's what I know. I mean, because
Thanks for painting a sort of graphic picture of what it's
Mhm.
going to look like at the local level.
Mhm.
sure.
Any other
And
comments people want?
this, if I could jump in, Dan, for a second, because
Yeah, go ahead.
point is well taken that, I mean, that's part of why the Student Opportunity Act is tiered the way it is, that we give, more money is directed towards higher concentrations of students with disabilities, students with ELs, and students who live in poverty. But clearly, we're taking away federally in the largest proportion to those same groups. So we're really going to be landing where we were before 2019 when we passed the Student Opportunity Act in a lot of our communities, right? Or we could be.
Yeah.
Well, and there's only 1 year left of SOA.
It doesn't end though, Yvonne, it doesn't compound, but what we end up with is what we have going forward plus the cost of living. Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Well, if, for example, the federal contribution to our district budget is about 8%.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think it's like 20, maybe a little, my administrator was looking at it, 20 to 22% in the state. So if the governor is saying if the federal money is pulled out, there's no state money to cover it.
Well, if we tax people correctly, there will be, but we'll see.
Well, if the formula means, right, like they're going to tax people more, you're going to see people leaving.
No, corporations.
Yeah,
There's a
well,
plan. There's a plan. We'll see. We'll see.
let's hope it works.
Yeah. Okay. Unless there's any other comment, I'll turn it back to Lisa.
Oh, well,
Doesn't,
okay, so we were going to break into small breakout rooms for a few minutes just to continue building our relationships and getting to know one another. So let me do that.
do you want to give any directions?
No directions, just talk amongst yourselves.
Just commiserate over the bleak conditions,
Yeah,
Just kidding. Organize.
So the directions are the conversation's open.
Yeah.
Just
Yes.
talking a drama stuff.
So if I create 4,
No, too many.
that's too many breakout rooms?
I think so now.
That's 4 per.
Oh, I'm wrong. I'm sorry.
Okay. All right. So it's 7:33. Why don't we talk for 6 minutes and then come back?
You want to count us off or something?
Oh, no, we're
No,
gonna.
she's just going to put us in rooms.
Yeah, I'm putting you in.
Okay.
How about 8 minutes? So we can have 2 minutes each.
All right, 8 minutes. 8 minutes it is. Am I in? Okay. Okay. So, welcome to our breakout room. Are you, oh, we lost Barbara? Oh, no, that wasn't the breakout room. I'm so confused. Breakout room am I in? Oh. They already know each other. And I'm trying. Yes.
Get to see the families. So
Yeah,
that's the
that's great.
the summer.
Great. How about you, Yvonne? What do you do in the summer? Recuperate.
No, I mean, I work all year.
I know,
We
I
get
know.
together with my grown-up daughters, and we'll do something in the summer to spend at least a week together.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where do they live? In
They both
Florida or-
they live in Miami,
Yeah.
in Fort Lauderdale.
Oh, cool. Well, they're nice and warm right now. You're not.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know.
Did you already say what you're doing, Beth?
I didn't, but I will. So I have for those who don't know, only Yvonne probably doesn't know. I have a 9-month-old granddaughter. So I care for her 3 days a week. But the rest of the time, um, we kayak and go to a lake and, spend a lot of hiking, outdoor time, biking, stuff like that. I'm looking forward to that. What about you, Lisa?
Well, we have a family wedding in
Nice.
June. My niece, Abby, is getting married, and it'll be the first big family get together since my mother's funeral. So a joyful family
Yeah.
get together, and I'm really looking forward to that
Mm-hmm.
for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's wonderful. When I first became president of AFT, so it was 2018, right? We had the Janus decision, which we thought, oh my God, that's going to kill so much about education and the ability to organize and support our educators, and it didn't. And then we had the pandemic. And we thought, oh my goodness, this is totally going to destroy education. And I mean, it harmed. There's still plenty of harm. I know that and see it. But it didn't destroy us. I think we're still recovering from it. But this part now, the federal government trying to explain to people around me as to why it's important to have the Department of Education. I had to learn real quickly what the Department of Education does for our kids, and I think there's tons they do that I don't know about. And what I'm concerned about changing is by not having a true federal oversight that cares about equity, that we could go back to the days before Brown versus the Board of Ed, where we have extremely unequal. I know we have unequal schools. I see it in our schools. Lynn, is where my heart lays, in Lynn and Salem and Lowell and Lawrence, with the discrepancies, especially in our buildings. But I'm afraid it'll get worse.
Yeah, for a good reason, because it's not just a question of like benign neglect. It's like
intention,
outright destruction, and like targeting, your students, Yvonne, like targeting them and their families, it's like a deliberate, it's shocking. It's just shocking that I've been saying like 0 to fascism in 60 seconds. That's what it
And they're
feels
not
like.
afraid to say this,
Yeah.
that we're not going to help our immigrant kids.
Did anybody see this teacher, read about this teacher in, I think it's Idaho, who was told to take down, she's a 6th grade, like social studies teacher, and she had a sign up and said, we welcome, everyone is welcome here. And it was just like hands of different shades of skin with the heart. And the principal or the superintendent said she had to take it down. She had 2 signs like that, take them down, because he said he was protecting her in case anybody, times have changed and people might think it's her personal opinion and her political opinion. And she took it down and then she put it back up.
Good for her.
Because she just, she doesn't think it's an opinion. She thinks it's like, that's what education is about. Like everyone is welcome here. That's what public education is about.
Right.
I mean, she was quite inspiring, I thought.
How can that not be what every one of us says or believes in our classroom? Right?
Or says at least. If not everyone, like you say, like they're not afraid to be nakedly racist. Yeah. But I do find the courage of people like that teacher. And
So you saw this on social media, so she's going to get attention. Who knows what'll happen?
I actually saw her interviewed on MSNBC.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's not flying under the radar.
Well,
I also saw like 4 fired federal workers interviewed by name, and they too were very inspiring, just like the best people,
of course.
the smartest, most capable, most accomplished, most dedicated, just kind of people you want doing things for you. So that was courage, an act of courage on their part too, to like be on TV with their names and everything.
Yeah.
Oop, I got to pay attention to our time. Our 8 minutes is up. So let me see if I can do this right. Close homes. Oh, broadcast, message. And, um,
Yvonne, are your daughters educators by any chance?
No, they're not.
Yeah, mine aren't either, but
No.
they probably saw how hard the work was and they went running.
No, they just really never gravitated to
Yeah.
education. One is a writer, she's a journalist, and the other one is she had got an MBA and she's going to law school.
Oh, great.
Yeah, she's been a litigator since she was like 2.
Where does the journalist work?
She is currently working for the Biscayne Times, the Miami Times, and she's trying to like she's doing pieces for an organization that is connected to, she wants to write for ProPublica, but
Oh, that'd be great.
so hard to get into, right?
Yeah, they do great work.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna send us all back to the big room.
Okay.
It was nice talking with you.
Likewise.
Oh, gives people 60 seconds. Leave.
Well, we already knew each other, so we had a great discussion about possibly fighting for more state revenue to take care of these things that we. I mean, we got to do that. We can't just ask for money. We've got to be on the revenue. And what were you talking about, Beth? What was it you were talking about?
So, Raise Up Massachusetts has something called Guilty that they're trying to get passed. Alan, you know, you're smiling. I see you.
I know this because they asked my wife to co-sign it because she was one of the few legislators that was there 20 years ago or something when they had the crisis parallel to
Global Intangible.
Okay.
Oh, Guilty. She's talking about Guilty.
Yeah. So, as a way to get a hold of a large amount of money, very similar to the fair share.
So we got to add revenue, not just asking for more money, but we have to add a revenue piece.
No, of course.
Yeah.
And then there's
Immediately.
also the rainy day fund, which is
yeah,
$8 billion.
It's a rainy day.
It's
It is
raining.
a rainy day.
Every time we say that, they say, no, we're saving it for a really rainy day. But
Yeah, I think this is it.
How much more rainy can it get?
Yeah.
I don't know. I thought the pandemic was rainy. They didn't spend it. Well, they did a
Well,
little.
we got federal money, you know?
That's right.
Now we're not getting it.
So I know. We got to balance it out.
Yeah.
So did we lose somebody?
I think we did.
Who did we lose?
That's okay.
Okay.
Should we move on?
Oh, did we lose Edith?
Edith, I think.
She
Yeah.
says she's coming back. She has.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right, yes, let's move on. So.
Okay. I
Oh,
think
here comes Edith. Here comes Edith. Okay, so next I'm going to turn it back over to Dan, who's going to talk about our People's Commission proposal and campaign.
So, as folks know, once question 2 passed, the governor was very quick to announce we've got to do something, and we've got to come up with an alternative way to assess students' readiness. And many of the calls for doing so, including the governor's, seem to be focused on there's got to be one consistent measure, almost as if pining for let's find another standardized test we can sneak in there that will that all students will be required to pass in order to graduate. But she did quickly set up this K-12 Graduation Requirements Council with 34 members. And one of the things about the 34 members is that an awful lot of them come from the legislature, from the Department of Ed, the Secretary of Ed, and a number of more conservative organizations, all of which were well, I shouldn't say all legislators who are on it, but many of which favored MCAS as a graduation requirement. So there is some consternation, concern amongst a lot of progressive educators that the council is holding 6 forums across the state, and it's supposed to look at what other states are doing around graduation requirements, and then come up with a draft proposal to present to the governor next December, with a final report due the following spring 2026. So there's concern that we will not get something that pushes Massachusetts public education forward, because many of us see the elimination of the MCAS graduation requirement as a real opportunity to think much more creatively, innovatively about how do we create the classrooms that best engage and meet the assets and needs of our increasingly diverse population, which you heard some of when Yvonne was talking about the demographics of the Lynn Public Schools. Our population over the last 20 years has dramatically changed, where whites are close to not being the majority anymore. And the percentage of low-income kids, Latino kids, and English learners have skyrocketed. So we've got to be thinking about what is a fundamental, what are the ways in which we can engage our kids in classrooms and assess what they're learning in ways that really push public education forward. And that is not a standardized test or any facsimile. So because of that concern, we also, a number of us looked at what New York State has done. And in New York State, they also actually have had a high stakes graduation test for longer than we have, the Regents exams, and kids have to pass 5 exams. But they recently came to the conclusion, the state board, that passed a few years ago, that we are not serving all kids the way we should, and particularly kids of color, low-income kids, students with disabilities, and immigrant students, English learners. And so they set out, they held 86 forums, not 6, but 86 forums over 2 years. They had over 2,700 people participate in those forums. They had another 3,600 people send in their written ideas about what with the questions they essentially asked is, what should high school graduates know and be able to do, and how should we assess their readiness to graduate? That resulted in something pretty dramatic for New York State, that they then set about creating what they call, and what many call, a portrait of the graduate, which articulates, I think it's 6 skills that our kids most need in today's world, both for career, college, and civic life, democratic life. I can't remember all of them, but collaboration, problem solving, reasoning analysis, etc. So ways of being in the world that do you well. And interestingly enough, they match up very well with what colleges, businesses, and democracy says we need. So, and then they also have come up with a portfolio of options that kids can undertake in order to demonstrate their readiness to graduate, which will include capstone performance assessments that are embedded in the curriculum, the portfolios, internships, apprenticeships, as well as they will include, if you want to, you can take and pass the Regents exam, because all kids, at least for now, it may not be in a month. The federal law requires all kids to take a standardized test so we can see how supposedly kids are doing in a consistent fashion. But kids could take that and pass that. So, and they're dumping the Regents exams in, I think, 2 years. So you compare that with what the Governor's Commission Council is doing, and it's like there's no comparison. So with our worries about what the results they'll come up with, given the composition of the council, and the how little they are doing actually to mine the field, because this is a real opportunity to get people's opinion. So we've talked about why don't we, just to ensure we can pump enough voices and feedback into the Governor's Council, why don't we conduct our own forums across the state in key communities and bring people in and ask the two questions of what should high schools know and be able to do upon graduation, and two, given that, how should kids demonstrate their readiness to graduate? A third question might be, given all that, what should our high schools of today look like? And be able to feed that into the Governor's Council process, and publicize it in a way that it puts some press on the Governor's Council to think more, if they aren't already, think more innovatively about what the next generation of assessment can look like. So that's the proposal. We've had discussions with MTA. They're going to fund us some to do that, but they want to stay in the background, rightly so. So they've gotten enough jabs and spears thrown their way, and our hope is when we conduct these forums that we hook up with local community organizations in the planning and implementing of them, so that we get people, the people who we think should be there, who might not show up at the Governor's Council forums at ours, and we will record, be able to record their voices. So that's the plan, and we haven't yet figured out timeline, but we're hoping to launch this spring, and it may carry over into the fall. But we want to get our final tabulated, coded responses and publicize them prior to the December 1 draft that the Governor's Council will be submitting. So I think I hit most everything. Alan, Lisa, have I missed anything, Lou?
We do have one tentative first date and forum and location in Cambridge for the Cambridge Somerville communities. And the tentative date is April 30th, the week after school vacation. We're working with a group of retired educators in Cambridge and reaching out to a lot of different organizations, community groups, and leaders in Cambridge to get as many endorsements and help with recruitment as possible.
And the other 5 sites that we're thinking about are Springfield, Worcester, New Bedford, Lynn, Yvonne, if you're willing to hook up with us, and then Boston.
And then so we haven't quite figured out what's the 6th, but there's also a thought of a rural.
That is a 6. We just named 6.
You did, right, but there's
Yeah.
also the rural one.
Yeah.
To figure that out.
Or virtual.
We decided at the last meeting to leave Greenfield out and go to Springfield.
Which I missed. Okay.
Did we?
Yes.
Okay.
Edith?
The reason for doing Cambridge Somerville first is simply that there's already an organized group in Cambridge, and so we thought we could get that one off the ground fastest. And we wanted to do one really, really soon. So did you say the date for that? It's
April 30th, 10, it hasn't been like nailed down, but that's what we're aiming for.
April
And
30th, the
yeah,
first.
Edith had her hand up.
So, hi, everyone.
Hi.
So, the problem I have with this discussion, and I guess I have to use a metaphor to set the tone for what I want to say, is that a tree grows in two different directions. You have the roots, and then you have what you see above the surface. The roots push through the rocks. It's dark, it's wet, it's hard for the roots to grow. And that's the hardest part. And so what we see from our eyes is the blossoming of the tree. And so the roots to me is instruction. That is the hard work of connecting with students, giving them what it means to have high quality instruction. The end product is the assessment piece. And so obviously, if the roots are not strong and they don't grow and they don't break through whatever that student is facing, whether it's trauma, whether it's they just arrived in the country as an English learner, they're facing structural racism, or if there's intersectionality of all three identities within that student. So I just feel like the conversation is incomplete when we don't discuss the disparities that occur in chronically failing transformation schools, where students don't get the level of education in high achieving schools. So I want to put that as a backdrop because I think without having that conversation, obviously, if there's not a nourishing of the roots, you're not going to see the blossoming of the tree, whatever that tree is growing, whether it's fruit or if it's just an evergreen or whatever it is. It's not going to grow in the direction that we can see. And so I just want to insert that into the conversation. And I know you're talking exclusively about assessment, but this is not just about assessment.
Yeah. Yes. Well said, Edith. And yes, we all need to pay attention to growing every school. But I'm going to quickly switch to Eric because I know he has to leave and he had his hand up. And then we can return to that discussion.
Yeah, I just put in the chat, just so folks know, the forum schedule for the council. So I'm actually on the council. I wasn't able to go to the first meeting because it was literally on Tuesday, and like I have been just like I've only been paying attention to one thing. We were literally, there all day. So, but the first one is April 1st in Western Mass. They don't have a location yet, and the next one is April 10th in Southeastern Mass. So the official forums are starting, very quickly. It's also like typical that they have a forum that they've announced in 10 days and they don't even have like a town, much less an actual location. And so, this is actually all the more reason to do this kind of thing. And with that, thank you all.
You guys haven't had a meeting yet, right?
No, the first meeting was Tuesday. I was not able to attend because we were bargaining, but
okay.
that was the first meeting. And with that, good night, everybody. Thank you. Sorry I had to.
Thanks, Eric. Bye-bye.
So yes, and just back to what Edith said, in terms of what she said, yes, we need to also have an education system that pays attention to ensuring that every school, particularly those serving kids of color, low-income kids, students with disabilities, and English learners, are getting high-quality instruction and assessment. So with that,
Dan, I'm talking about Black students, and we haven't mentioned the word Black. And that's very frustrating to me because you talk about poor students, immigrant students, English learners, Latino students, and Black students historically have been left out. And I don't care about the numbers. This is not a numbers game; it's a historical denial of education. So I'm frustrated with that, and I'm just putting that out there that it's not okay to leave Black students out because Black educators are the ones who fought through litigation from slavery to create public education for everyone. And we know that there are case studies that affirm that. And so if you don't look at the historical, not only denial where Black literacy was a crime, but also the engineers and innovators of what it means to push against that, the Black abolitionists, the Black lawyers, the groups that sacrificed, died for everyone, for immigration to happen, to pave the path for public education. I think that that is leaving a lot out. It really is. And I'm not talking about desegregation. I'm talking about pre-desegregation from slavery up to the period of where these cases were litigated by Black attorneys and Black plaintiffs and Black educators who created schools in lieu of not having access to public education, and really fought and died for this. So it's harmful to name every group and leave this historical piece out because that's what we hear. So I just wanted to amplify that. Thank you.
Barbara.
I was going to say that I think what's most frustrating, and I understand the politics of it and all that, but what I find really uh, frustrating is the fact that we fought to get rid of MCAS. And as soon as we got rid of MCAS, we jumped right into, well, let's find another kind of way to measure our kids. And I haven't really heard any pushback, and I know the discussion within our organization here, but there hasn't been any real pushback into why do we even need these tests other than what we heard. People say, well, how are you going to measure children and all this other stuff? But I guess it gets back to what Edith was saying about the root, the root cause of what we claim we're trying to get to, which is the achievement of students. We still haven't addressed that, and it won't be addressed. All we'll do is have another way of looking at our kids, determine who's doing well, who's not doing well, according to that assessment, without getting to the issue of what are we assessing and how are we assessing it. And for the governor to jump out there and she gets her own little group and they're going about the same thing. And instead of MCAS, maybe we'll have donuts, whatever they want to call it. But we'll be right back into the same arena. And I don't know how one addresses that because I don't think folk are willing to really address it in that way. It's like, okay, how can we appease folk by getting another measurement, but not one that we feel is going to be fair, equitable, or force us to provide the kind of education we should if we want to assess it. So just wanted to say that.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, I think the points raised is so critical, and we ran into that in the Yes on Two fight. Um, just the centrality of actual anti-racist instruction and instruction that's combating anti-Black racism. I'm curious through this People's Assembly process if some of those, I wonder if to what extent some of those root causes will come up, like the institutional shortcomings and not having Black teachers in schools. I wonder to what extent this work may encompass some of those issues, because I would imagine these communities will tie those together to the problems with racist assessment. So that's sort of a half-baked thought. But I'm just, I think they have to be connected.
Andrew, I don't think that's half-baked. I think that's right on point because, to say and act like there's no racism in the classroom and that our students are not confronted with that on a daily basis. And that's why the instruction in the curriculum is watered down. Then you're denying the fact that racism permeates every institution, school, culture, and individual as well. It's a pattern. And, I think it's a fair and actually an excellent point to bring up what all the studies say about the value and the affirmation of Black educators, not just for Black students, but for all students. Because those who face oppression really ensure that no one else faces what they are confronted with. And they have that equity lens because of their own denial of a pathway to excellence. And that's why the studies affirm that Black educators make a difference in graduation and college entry and overall in preparation, as well as taking AP courses. And while people don't like the idea of AP courses or even exam schools, as a Black person, I think that that's critical. We don't look at it the same way that you guys look at it. We don't, as a collective. We don't see it as, we see it problematic because I believe I should have gone to an exam school, but I was denied that opportunity as a student in BPS. And so to say, oh, let's just get rid of them, it says, well, let's get rid of them because you can't get into it. But that's not okay. Dismantling racism is about system structures that oppress a certain group. It's not about getting rid of something. It's about really dismantling those internal structures that deny access and opportunity.
Lisa.
Well, I think this conversation underscores how important it is that we get everyone's help in recruiting a really diverse group of people to participate in these conversations, because we really want to have everybody, and we want to really, we don't want it to be like our agenda. We want to hear what people think. And it also, I think, underscores the importance of that third question that we're asking, like, if we want our students to get certain things and be prepared in a certain way by the time they graduate, what will a school look like? And, a school will look like not a racist school, and a school will look like an equitable school with equitable opportunities for everyone, and a school will look like, that's a really important piece that I think goes to Edith's comments about paying attention to the roots and not just what we see above ground.
Any other comments, conversation? I guess the last thing I'll say is anybody who's interested in these sessions can always join the testing policy work group, because that's where we're doing the planning.
Can I say something about what Lisa said?
Sure.
So I just want to say the question is, why am I as a black student? And I'm talking about myself as a student, seen as an underachiever. And I was, who is not college material, and thereby not given high quality instruction and not provided with the opportunity to learn. And you, as a white person, are assumed to be capable, qualified to go into AP and exam schools, AP classes and exam schools. Even if you're not prepared, you're accelerated. And so if we can't ask that question, and we can't ask that question of every educator, because that's what happens to us. We enter high quality schools and we still don't get the same. We can sit next to a white student, we still don't get the same education. It's the same way within a family. One sibling is treated with favoritism, the other one is considered the black sheep. And, I'm just using that purposely because it said black sheep, which is a negative thing. You all know that. But the parents, they have the same parent. And so, like, why is that? And that's what racism looks like. But it's a lot more gaslighting involved and a lot more harm and a lot more trauma than that example that I gave you of two siblings in the same household. One ends up going one pathway because they, are not favored. And I think those are critical questions that you have to ask yourself, because As white people, you don't experience racism. You read about it, you hear about it from us. And from our perspective, it goes in one ear and out the other because it doesn't impact your life. And so we're the experts because we deal with it and we face it every single day. But you don't know what anti-Blackness is. We do. And so that perspective is not part of you. It's not your fault, but it's because you don't have to be confronted with that. And you don't know what it feels like, what it looks like, how it inhibits your growth and development, and how it insidiously impacts students who are sitting in the classroom with a teacher who thinks she's doing the best thing, but says, you know what, this student had a hard life. You don't have to read the book. That's racist to say that. Or why don't you go in the bathroom and comb your hair because I know that you haven't had a chance to take a bath and I'm going to help you. That's racist. But that's a good meaning person, and that is what withholding high quality instruction looks like. And so it's not just the overt teacher who is overtly racist. It's that nice teacher that Robin DiAngelo talks about when she wrote the book Nice Racism. And she's right about that. So I just want to say that good intentions, the path to hell is paved with good intentions. And, one trips over these things because it's not your experience. And that's why it's hard to have these conversations.
Julie, I think you get last word.
Oh, well, I hope that everyone will consider being part of this, our committee, or at least to help on these, what are we calling it? People's forums? Is that what
There you go.
People's
Yeah,
forums?
there you
Okay.
go.
And especially Edith, I hope that you can help us with these because we need the outreach. We want to have parents, teachers, students, community members. Obviously, we want to have many Black students and parents, and to tell us what is going on and why we have to face that and how we can do that. So we need everyone's perspective, and we need everyone here to help, at least on one of the hearings, to help us get people there. So I hope even if you can't, be with us for the whole series, that, for example, the Boston hearing, the forum, not a hearing, it's participatory. That's what's really different about this. People are going to be sitting down and talking with each other in small groups, and everyone gets a chance to say what they believe should be happening. And Edith, it would be great to have you as part of this, of course.
And
Okay,
it's certainly all of our responsibilities to roll out all sorts of folks that we know. It's not just this responsibility, but our also responsibility to roll out Black folks that we know and network with, as well as immigrants, English language learners, etc.
Yep. Agreed. Thank you. Go. I'm going to turn it back to Lisa.
Mute. Okay, thanks, Dan. Thanks, everybody, for your input. I do think it's an exciting proposal. I hope you do too, and I hope everyone can help in any way that they can. And so we're a little behind, so I'll just try to do a really quick summary of my executive director's report, which highlights of what we've been doing since our annual meeting via our three main working groups, one on testing, one called Eliminating Barriers to Opportunity, and a newly reconvened working group on school funding. So we just talked about what the testing working group's been focused on, which is developing the idea for this People's Forum series. And have to shout out Deb McCarthy for being such a good partner in thinking about this and helping us develop it, and going to bat for us getting support to do this. So thank you, Deb, and also just like being there all along the way through question 2 and in so many ways. I don't know if she can hear me, but
I can. I'm just going to stop for a second and I apologize for driving. But I also just wanted to take a second to thank Edith. I really want you to know that when you speak, I listen, I learn from your truths, and I just want to thank you for keeping the conversation real, so that I can learn more in this journey as an anti-racist educator. So thank you.
Thanks, Deb. Okay.
Thank you, Deb.
So, so that's the testing working group. The eliminating barriers group is looking at, well, we talked to Raul Fernandez today about his work on thinking about ways to desegregate schools, and not sure where we're going to go with that. But that's sort of building on, we had our whole series on race and public education. The Eliminating Barriers group was also represented by Dan and Barbara in the Vocational Education Justice Coalition, which has been working tirelessly and strategically and finally pressed the state to release draft admissions regulations that make progress toward more equitable admissions for students from protected classes, but still does not meet the coalition's call for a full blind lottery admissions policy for voc ed schools. The group will be testifying and advocating for this change over the next month during the public comment period, with the state board planning to vote at their May meeting on the final regulations. And CPS also, as members of the Juvenile Justice Coalition, has agreed to actively support two of that coalition's bills. One on getting school resource officers out of schools, and the other on narrowing the reasons for which students can be excluded from school, while also ensuring that any exclusion includes due process. And then our newly reconvened school funding group. As you know, CPS has a history of advocating for adequate and equitable school funding going back to our founding, and continuing through our participation campaigns for the Student Opportunity Act and the Fair Share Amendment. And now, as we've been talking about tonight, with the school facing another school funding crisis, we've reconvened this working group, which is meeting every 2 weeks to determine how we can continue to play a meaningful role in the school funding fight. And I'm representing CPS in a newly formed and an expanding coalition called United for Our Future. It's being chaired by Anthony Moreshi of the MTA, and it includes a range of stakeholder groups advocating for legislative action on school funding, including the teachers' unions, the Superintendents Association, Mass Budget, Mass Association of Regional Schools, the PTA, and Lawyers for Civil Rights, and others. And United for Our Future was launched with a joint statement describing the crisis and highlighting particular areas that need legislative action, including an inflation fix for Chapter 70, special education funding, transportation, and support for rural and regional schools. And the current focus is on the upcoming Ways and Means hearings. First one's on March 24th, which is Monday. It's invitation only, but you can watch it and communicate with the members. And then a public hearing on April 8th. And we, CPS, are working on a Action Network letter writing campaign to encourage our members to write to the Ways and Means co-chairs and their own legislators, supporting the priorities of the United for a Future group. And as Shreyvan mentioned earlier, you still here? Yes. As a founding organizational member of the Mass Education Justice Coalition, will be participating in MAJA's Advocacy Day at the State House on April 16th, an opportunity to advocate for the legislature to address the funding crisis. And just have to thank our whole board, all of you, for showing up, and our executive board of Dan French, Julie Johnson, Barbara Fields, Alan Jalen, Sheila Dector, Jennifer Debin, Drew King, and Suleika Soto. And I'll turn it over now to Drew for the treasurer's report and the approval of the minutes.
Thanks, Lisa. Keep this brief. Let me share. Well, should I put the link in the chat if people want?
I can put the links in the chat.
Okay.
So-
or do you want, or should one of us share our screen? I just have to also look at my notes.
Would people rather
we
share our screen or look at it on their own screens? I'll put it in the chat.
All right.
Go ahead, Drew.
So, first, just looking at the annual budget summary for last year, 2024, just the main item of note, you can see towards the bottom row 49 is net operating revenue. Our income, our expenses exceeded our income by $3,945. And that was simply because last year, leading up to July, we were paying our regular monthly fee for Network for Good. And then in July, we ended up paying a lump sum to get Network for Good for the next year. They no longer allowed us to get it monthly, but they gave us a discount to pay it all at once. So there's a bump in July from paying for a year until this July for Network for Good. And at the last e-board, there was a request for info about how much we had in reserves at the end of 2024. And that you see on the bottom here. So the cash balance is at the end of December 24 with $34,673.12 in the operating account, checking account, and $31,612 in our interest-bearing money market account. So that totals $66,285. The bookkeeper told us that's enough to cover 4.9 months of expenses. For those who were interested about that. And then let's look at 2025 this year.
Okay, I just put that one in the chat.
I guess just note we have a more ambitious fundraising goal for our individual contributions of $38,000 as opposed to $33,000. We're going to be receiving, again, we're always eternally grateful to our teachers unions partners. We anticipate to receive $80,000 in revenue from our 3 union partners, and the $30K of that we're anticipating for this month. We're super grateful for them always. Truly committed to ed justice, partnering with us education activists in the grassroots. And as always, we're super appreciative of all y'all and on your ongoing annual support to help us meet our fundraising goal for each year. If you're not sure whether you're up to date on your membership, Lisa can let you know. We're also, Lisa circulated a donation letter to attendees from some of our events last year, a follow-up to try to recruit them to join and become members, like our multi-language learner series. And, and last December, we also were making rounds of calls to lapsed members who had, been full donating members in the past, but who have lapsed. So we have efforts on multiple fronts to re-engage those folks. Questions? Anything else?
Julie?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that just so you'll know, if you're looking through the budget, what we mainly spend money on. Lisa is our, and that's wonderful. So that's what we're doing. We think of what we're raising money for is to have our incredible, hardworking, amazing executive director. So that's what most of our income goes toward, and then the support of the organization for other things. But so as you can see, that's so important, and we want to make sure that she gets her cost of living increases.
Yeah.
So, you know, expenses go up, so I just wanted you to know what we're spending our money on. It's very, very good.
Yes.
So
We'd be a shell of an organization without Lisa.
So we do need, you know, as everything's going up, and if there's, you know, if you can help, we really need to raise a few more $1,000 this year, I hope that people can help.
Okay, it's 8:29. Any last
Can we just
messages, Drew,
quickly?
before we give it back to Lisa?
Oh,
You done, Drew? You all set?
Yep. Thank you.
Okay.
thanks, Drew.
Great.
Well,
You can close us out, Lisa, then.
Well, we technically should quickly review and approve the minutes, which I just put in the minutes from the
How
last
about
meeting.
all in favor?
Yay!
There you go.
Okay, 8:30 on the nose. Thank you all so much. Really appreciate your attention and your presence and all the work that you do. And it's
Thank you,
really
Lisa.
what keeps me afloat, being able to work on these really difficult issues with all of you, and appreciate your honesty, Edith, and trying to keep us honest too. So
have a good evening.
Have a good evening, everybody.
Nice seeing everybody. Bye-bye.
Take
Bye-bye.
care. Have a good evening.
Night all.
Thanks, Lisa.
Thanks, Sheila. Thanks, Peggy. Closing at 8:30. You still, Peggy looks frozen.
Yeah, I'm getting there. I had it dimmed because I was doing my head exercises while we were
Oh,
doing it. I didn't want someone, to see